Hello, my noble band of outlaws. Outlaw Samurai coming at you live with a video. Well, as many of you may or may not know, sorry about that, I am a fan of a YouTube show called ADHD'S WORLD. And I like their content. They actually have made me laugh my ass off a few times. And, I watched a video made by them, which usually goes around the one who does ADHD's World. His name's King Reptar, and he's very hyperactive. I don't know if he has ADHD or not, or what's the situation there. But with that in mind, King Reptar, I have to give you a shout out. You are funny as hell, and I like your content. And I watched this video about him. He was trying to break open a safe, and he had the idea of lighting a can of WD-40 on fire and then shooting it with a BB gun, pellet gun, airsoft gun, whatever you want to call it. And as logic would dictate, it exploded into a flamethrower that severely burned him. If you want to find it, just type in shooting WD-40, just shooting a can of WD-40 with a gun on the YouTube search. I am not being racist by this. If you find a black man with the name ADHD's World on the title in a neck and arm cast, that's him. I am by no means at all being racist. It's just I do not know of any other way to describe the thumbnail picture of the video. But it actually got me thinking. He said he did take a lot of safety precautions, and I can see you've never done the experiment before, and you don't know what the full measure of safety precautions you have to do. He has healed since then. I believe it's been a while ago since he did this. He was, again, trying to blow open a safe door. And with that in mind, I couldn't have watched that video all the way and not made a response video of a way to help him if he decides to do a similar experiment in the future. So if any of you out there watch ADHD's World's videos, or if you know him personally, have him watch this video, and I guess skip to the, I'm going to say 3:40 mark, if you don't want to hear all the last 4 minutes of my rambling, which now it's 3:44. But I have actually worked out a way to shoot a can of lit WD-40 and stay safe while doing it. I've probably taken more safety precautions than a normal person would. I mean, logic would dictate that you want to be far away, but if you're filming it for your show, you would want to be close enough for the cameras to catch the effect. And I know my hair is greasy and it's really shiny in this light. I haven't washed it in a while. But I drew it on this piece of cardboard here. WD-40 Flamethrower Experiment, inspired by ADHD's World. And got that little happy face with the cool and safe. Now you're probably thinking this is just some crude drawing, but what this is you have the WD-40 can right here in a vise, like a blacksmithing vise or some form of vise that you can in turn attach in either it has an integral pole or not. Like if you have to screw it into a 4x4, that would be acceptable. But it has an integral, either it has an integral base or you put a steady base in it. So placing the can of WD-40 into the vise, which is then placed inside of a 5-gallon bucket, and concrete is poured in and let dry to keep it in place so that you have a good, strong, sturdy base. Because when you shoot the can, the flame, in theory, will shoot out this way, and because of a rocket effect, it will want to take the vise this way, in the opposite direction that the flame is going. To that, I have also, originally I was planning to soak the surrounding area in at least 20 gallons of water to ensure that the fire could not engulf the surrounding area if there was grass. But I'm now thinking of getting a metal trough, filling that with water, and then wetting the area around the metal trough, which will save time and energy in the long run. Onto that, if you've noticed, you'll see a box. This box, it will have a face here, 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 and back here. That box is to contain the fire, and if it goes upward, and to force any embers to go down. It will not allow the fire to go up or the can to shoot back or anything like that. And if there's an explosion, the box will contain the shrapnel from the can. Obviously, it won't contain it this way, but it will contain it in the other 4 planes. So, yeah. Now, with that in mind, over here, we have what looks to be a wall of 4x4s. And I guess you could do that. But this is just a simple plywood wall with simple bracing right here. And the gun, as you can see, made a little bullet trail, fires, and it hits the WD-40 can. And with that in mind, when you do this experiment, I would highly suggest when you make the box to go over the vise that the WD-40 can will be sitting in, use a primer, prime the wood, paint it with primer, and then spray on a coat of high temperature resistant paint. That would be the same paint that you would put onto grills, because what will happen is the fire, it's going to burn hottest near the can. It's probably going to exceed a temperature of 1,000 degrees. It won't reach 2,000 degrees because there's not enough fuel or continuous amount of fuel going into the fire to allow it to burn that hot, but it will at least get to a minimum of 1,000 degrees, and that fire coming out will be at least 800. Now, the thing with fire is, yes, it is dangerous, and yes, it is badass when it does badass shit, but you have to be extremely safe when playing with it, as, well, I call it. If you've watched my videos playing with fire, I keep preaching about fire safety, and that is something I believe in. I know on Outlaw Samurai, I say I don't give a damn about safety. I never claim to be smart. That's for entertainment purposes. I'm not the smartest person in the world, but I feel I have significant intelligence enough to relay my thoughts on this subject matter, and I am conscious enough around fire to give my opinions about this. And the reason I say high temperature paint, that's probably what you're all thinking when I said that. Like, why does it specifically have to be high temperature paint? Well, aside from the fact that paint chips when it gets hot, the paint will act as a second barrier because WD-40, in a sense, is a form of synthetic oil. So, with that in mind, if that oil gets onto the wood itself, it will actually catch the whole box on fire. Now, what the paint will do is the paint will act as a barrier, like a shield, to keep the wood from catching on fire as easily. My personal opinion, you should probably at least put about 5 coats of paint and about 3 coats of primer onto it to ensure that the wood does not catch on fire. And the same with your shield over here. You're going to want to put the same amount of primer and the same amount of high temperature paint on that as well, because of the simple fact that fire. When I watched the ADHD World, I noticed that it did reach them. Now, kudos to them. They did have experience enough with messing with fire to handle themselves correctly. I will seriously give them props on that. But with that in mind, when you're doing something like this, anything that you can think of to ensure safety, you should probably think about 2 or 3 other things that you can in turn add to the first thing to improve your safety even more. That's why I did this the way I did. I wanted to make sure I had every exact safety measure covered because I am planning on doing this sometime in the future. I will do this myself. I'm not challenging anybody. I'm not trying to get anyone to do this. I'm not going to do any of this. I'm not going to explain any of this or tell you about any of this without me first going out on the record saying that I will attempt this and I will do all the safety programs and all the safety measures I have explained in this video on this experiment. I will take that video seriously. Now, there will probably be witty banter at the start because even though it's a serious video, I still want to give you guys some form of a light-hearted feel to the experiment. But you need to take this seriously if you're going to do any experiments with fire. Especially when you mix accelerants into the mix like alcohol, propane, kerosene, gasoline, diesel, all that stuff, you have to be extremely careful when you mix the accelerants into the mix. And keep forms of fire extinguisher retardant nearby. And ADHD World, this is a little tip for you. Fire extinguishers don't always work. There are different grades of fire extinguishers for different things. I don't know if you already knew that. I'm just saying this now. But if you are dealing with a oil or gas or any kind of fire that has an accelerant, I would seriously suggest investing in a barrel full of soil, potting soil, or dirt. Because what that will do is you can throw the dirt on the fire and it will begin to smother it. Fire cannot burn if there is no oxygen to fuel. You can have a fire. You can light a pool of gasoline on fire. But if the oxygen is taken out of that equation, the fire won't burn. You need fuel and oxygen to fuel a fire. I'm also going to be stepping up the fire power in that video that I'm going to make. Whereas I have a 50 caliber muzzleloader. If you search through my channel's video list, you'll find that review. Uh, I will be using that when I perform the experiment, or if I get my hands on another firearm by then, I will be using whatever firearm I feel will be the most advantageous for safety considering the range. And that's something I wanted to explain. Like with ADHD World, your experiment, there is, like with fire, you can't see all the fire in sunlight. Okay, you can't, like, if you were to light a bed of coals and wait for that fire to go down, that fire is still burning. It's just not burning intense enough for you to see it with your physical eyes. So, with that in mind, if there is, let's pretend this is 6 feet of fire. If this is 6 feet of fire and you're standing here, the residual heat from the fire will bring the air temperature around that fire hot enough to scorch whatever's around it at the time. It's the same with lightning. The air around a bolt of lightning, immediately around the bolt of lightning, gets as hot as the surface of the sun. Now, the fire they use is nowhere near that level of intensity, but the same thermodynamics apply where this is our 6 feet of fire, there's about maybe 2 feet of fire you don't see. And that fire is strictly the heat of the air itself. So, with that in mind, I think I've gotten all I wanted to say out of the way in terms of the experiment, the safety precautions that will be taken. And when I actually do go to perform the experiment, I'll probably add about another 20 or so precautions that I'll take before I actually do it. Like, by then I'll probably think about 50 other, at least I'll probably think of about another 100 safety precautions I'll take, like increasing the thickness of the wall of the shield, basically, or something along those lines. But with that in mind, I do believe this experiment is completely feasible and doable. It's just that it has to be done correctly and in a open space. That's another thing. The space they were in was probably only about 4 feet wide. And with that in mind, that fire is contained. I want to say that if the space was more open, the fire probably would have dispersed outwards more. But because of the confined space, it was more of a beam, less of an explosion. Now, I don't know, like I said, I don't know the entire schematics behind that experiment, and I'm not an expert on this at all. I'm not an expert on thermodynamics at all. But with that in mind, I never claimed to be an expert on thermodynamics. It's just my knowledge of how fire works. I studied it because I do intend to become a blacksmith one day. So having a plethora of knowledge about fire is an extremely good quality to have. But with that in mind, I do hope that one of you guys at ADHD World, you see this video and you listen to my advice, you don't listen to my advice. I'm not trying to say I'm smarter than you. I'm not trying to belittle you. I know there's a lot of shit that you guys do off camera that doesn't get put into the main video. And with that in mind, it's like, you guys do make wonderful content. Like, there have been times when I am bored out of my skull and about to fall asleep, and I watch one of your videos and I get hyped again. And it's just one of those, your guys are just one of those channels that your content makes people feel good, in my opinion. And I felt like after I watched you come clean and everything, that I want to help you increase the safety of your fire experiments, especially if you're going to be exploding things. So, with that in mind, all y'all out there, be crazy rednecks, like, subscribe, like, subscribe, and make sure you're safe around fire. I cannot stress that enough. Make sure that you stay safe around fire. And if any of you guys out there watch ADHD World, or you know King Reptar personally and you see this video, please share this with him. I really do hope that my 21 minutes of rambling is going to be useful. But until next time, Outlaw Samurai tells all y'all, be crazy rednecks, be safe when using your weapons, and for the love of... I don't really want to say this because I'm afraid of mixed reviews, but me personally, I'm an atheist. I said it. Now, I don't judge other people or their religion. It's just my way. So, please, for the love of whatever God or religion you believe in, for the love of the Christian God, for the love of Allah, for the love of every other God, Odin, Zeus, every freaking God in every pantheon from across the globe, be careful when using fire. I cannot stress that enough. Stay safe, and please have a happy holidays. Merry Christmas, Happy Hanukkah, whatever other holidays you guys celebrate. I'm out. Peace. Had to at least put one blade in this. You know me, I had to put one blade.